Continue?
Continue, yes, and we'll catch them all at the end.
Sure. I'm going to skip to page 20. Again, in the Board of Pharmacy, we primarily talk about the KTRAX program. One of the things that the Board of Pharmacy did this last interim was have stakeholder meetings. They have been trying to find better ways to fund the KTRAX program. You might remember last year they wanted to charge 4 of the other fee boards for part of the funding for KTRAX. The legislature did remove those transfers. So this year they came up with some different ideas for funding. One of those is to increase their fees, and then they still were a little short, so they asked for transfers from the Board of Healing Arts and the Board of Nursing. For the Healing Arts, it's $75,000, and for the Board of Nursing, it's $70,000. So you'll notice in this table, the third line at the right, when you see the governor recommendation for fiscal year 2022 and fiscal year 2023, there's a transfer in of $145,000 from those 2 agencies. Below that is a list of their fees, the current fee and the statutory limit. That continues on the next page. And that is the end of my presentation, so I will stand for questions.
All right, in the interest of time, I think we'll go to Alexandria Blasey, Executive Director of Kansas Board of Pharmacy, and hear her few comments. And then we'll ask questions to either one of the conferees. Okay, thank you, Alexandria. Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Alexandra Blasey, the Executive Director for the Board of Pharmacy. In the interest of time, you have my 3-page testimony that really does in detail outline the funding plan for KTRAX, as well as our request for enhancement for the new inspector position and the basis for that decision, as well as some of our performance metrics. My testimony is not 15 pages. However, I have included our annual legislative report for the KTRAX program just for your reference, for those of you that may not be as familiar with the KTRAX program and what it does. I will state that I know you're going to hear the Board of Healing Arts budget, and I believe Board of Nursing maybe budget, or have heard it already. And all of the stakeholders, all of the KTRAX stakeholders believe that KTRAX, the prescription monitoring program, is a program that benefits all citizens of the state of Kansas. It truly does serve a public benefit. And while the users may be prescribers and pharmacists of that system, it is a voluntary system. And so for many years, the stakeholders did recommend to the legislature that there be state general funding. However, last year we were given, myself specifically, we were given the charge of identifying funding for the program that does not include state general funding. And so that is what we have presented this year. You can see that for fiscal year 21, we are set. So we're really looking at fiscal years 22 and 23. We have pulled out really kind of some core program maintenance costs, which are around $374,000 a year. We believe that those can be funded using Board of Pharmacy fee funds, as well as a small supplement in the amount of $70,000 from the Board of Nursing and $75,000 from the Board of Healing Arts for the next 2 fiscal years. However, I want to be clear that our goal is that out. And so one of the recommendations from the board is to establish a tax incentive for donations to the KTRAX program from members of the public and organizations. We would very much appreciate this committee's support and direction with that plan, and anything that can be done to enable that. While we don't think we could bring in funds sufficient to cover those costs initially, we believe over time that there are interested parties in making donations to this program. The board already has the authority to accept those fees, but there is no incentive for donating. But we believe if there were an incentive, people would donate to this important cause, and that would help supplement those fee funds and phase them out over time. The more significant expense, we are planning to create a tiered structure for essentially a fee for service for the integration program of KTRAX. The KTRAX software would remain free of charge. However, there's an integrated data directly into electronic health record systems. This is by far our more successful methodology in terms of reaching prescribers and dispensers and enabling them to use the system real time during their clinical visits with their patients. On average, it saves about 4.5 minutes per patient. So as I'm sure you're aware, these providers are very busy, and that time really adds up during the course of their day. And so that would be based on utilization of those integrated entities and would likely cost, based on our figures with our current integrations, we would charge perhaps a small, 1 or 2 person physician clinic about $500 a year, all the way up to maybe a few $1,000s a year for a large health system or something like that. So we would not a flat fee so that it would not be a deterrent. There are a few states that have used this model successfully, and we believe that it could work in the state of Kansas. Meanwhile, we do continue to actively pursue grant funds. We are actually in conversations with the KDHE Medicaid division on new Support Act requirements with regard to Medicaid providers utilizing and enrolling in the KTRACS program. That's a new requirement. And so we are actively working with our partners and continue to do everything in our power to request grant funds. However, those are generally for enhancements and not for maintenance costs. So that's why we've sort of divided up into these tiers. We've worked with the stakeholders at length to come up with this plan, and we're very pleased to move it forward. And we hope that I would be happy to answer any questions. Obviously, the KTRACS program is somewhat complex, and so I don't know that I can give you an overview in just a few short minutes, but I would be more than happy to provide more detail at any time, as does our 2021 legislative report. With that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Alexandria, and we're going to have to move on to our next budget soon, but do we have questions from the committee for Shirley or Alexandra? As Chair recognizes Senator McGinn.
Thank you. And I know the Board of Pharmacy always takes a little bit of time, but you've been doing some good work with this KTRACS, and it has been a journey trying to find the appropriate funding over time. First question I have, I appreciate your idea to do a tax credit, but also I would like to know, and I love this ringing. Here's Tom Day so he can hear it. So can you guys set up a fund also for just contributions to KTRACS in the event you have a family that has been affected by this, and it's something that people can make a contribution? Maybe you're gone now. Are they gone?
No, the authority, Senator McGinn, we have the authority now to accept any gift from or donation from any individual into the pharmacy fee fund. We've just not seen anyone express any interest in that. To be fair, I don't know that we've done a significant amount of promotion, but we were hoping that if we started a promotional campaign, it perhaps would be coupled by an incentive. I have had some informal conversations with some large healthcare entities located in the state of Kansas. I won't mention their names because, of course, they've given no formal commitment, but they have expressed an interest in a donation program if there was some sort of incentive benefit.
Okay, I think in a year from now, I can't wait to hear your report back. On the federal funding, you said you did address that, and that, but there's just nothing out there right now. Is that correct?
Actually, we are continuing to pursue grant fundings. We are recipients of a 2018 Harold Rogers grant. We are now recipients of a 2020 Harold Rogers grant. That is helping us supplement staff salaries and other projects that it doesn't cover the entire cost of the program, but it assists. We're also recipients of a little over $1 million a year through August of 2022 with the KDHE Overdose Data to Action grant from the CDC. So we are continuing to pursue all grant opportunities.
All right, thank you. And then my final question, Madam Chair, is how much did you have to increase the pharmacist fees in order to do your part of the KTRACS?
Our fee increases from May of 2019 ranged from 25% to 46%. I will note that our fees we actually had decreased our fees in 2014. So the increase actually just set us back to where they were before 2014. We also did specifically exclude our folks that have lower license fees. So our technicians, our interns, and our retail dealers, those fees did not increase. Our bill that we have introduced into appropriations this year does call for an increase of some statutory caps because we had hit the threshold on those. And I don't have those figures in front of me, Madam Chair, but I would be happy to provide the bill number to the committee when that comes out.
We'd like to know that, so thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So we're running short on time, but we have two questions, Senator Warren and Senator Fasquedo afterwards.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I was just going to say I'm glad you explained the K-TRACS program a little bit for those listening online and don't know about, the acronym, what it stands for and all. So thank you for explaining that a bit. I know it could be the subject of a full hearing, but we're glad to see that that seems to be fully funded and functioning as intended. So thank you.
Senator Fasquedo, and then we'll have to deliberate and move on.
Madam Chair, Senator Warren, she must be rubbing off on me. That was going to be my question, comment. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the questions, and thank you, Shirley and Alexandria. And do I have a motion at this point?
Madam Chair, I would normally make this motion, but this report does look pretty good, and you guys have done a really good job over the last few years trying to make this thing work. Thank you very much. So if there are no other questions or no wishes to not deliberate, I'm going to make a motion to approve the Board of Pharmacy's budget report.
So I have a motion and a second. Senator Kelly, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Thank you. Shirley, you're up again. This is Board of Healing Arts, and we'll have you do the overview, and then we have Tucker Polling. Oh, I'm sorry, I also want to mention Tara Mays, Vice President of State Legislative Relations, Kansas Hospital Association, has written testimony on the Board of Pharmacy in your packet. So now we'll move on to Board of Healing Arts, and you take it away, Shirley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you will turn to page 10 of the budget analysis for the Board of Healing Arts. The agency requests a revised estimate of $6.5 million. Again, this is all special revenue fund. This is no change from the approved amount from last year. However, you'll notice in the bullets, they have moved a little money around between expenditure categories. The governor recommends expenditures of $6.5 million. This is an increase of $21,742. And again, this is some of the COVID relief money that they were provided for PPE equipment. On page 12, we have the 2022 budget year. The agency requests $6.5 million, which is an increase of $58,000. The increase is primarily in salaries and wages and capital outlay. You'll notice on page 13, the capital outlay is software and computer equipment. And the governor concurs with the agency's budget and recommends and includes the transfer of the $75,000 to the Board of Pharmacy from the Board of Healing Arts for K-TRACS. On page 14, we have budget year 2023. The agency requests $6.9 million. This is an increase of $373,000, primarily capital outlay. And on page 15, you'll notice the capital outlay increase, $368,000 for computer processing equipment and software. The governor does concur with the agency's recommendation and also the transfer of $75,000 to the Board of Pharmacy for the K-TRACS system. The last thing that I will note with this budget is on page 18, the Healing Arts Fee Fund. You will notice on the left-hand side, there are the transfers out of the $75,000 in 22 and 23. I will also note toward the bottom of that table, we have an ending balance, which is the percent of expenditures. So with the transfers, the fee fund balance from 2020 is 54.9, and it goes down to 46.4. So it's not a great expenditure deletion with those transfers. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Thank you, Shirley. Let's see if Tucker, would you like to speak with us a few minutes, and then we'll ask questions to both of you at the end? Good morning, Tucker. Tucker Poling, Executive Director, Kansas State Board of Healing Arts. Welcome.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Tucker Poling. I'm the Executive Director of the Kansas State Board of Healing Arts. We license and regulate 32,000 healthcare providers in Kansas from 15 different healthcare professions. You have my written testimony. I know you're short on time, so I won't go into the full explanation. But I want to point out, in my written testimony, I did have discussion of K-Tracks. The one point of divergence between what we submitted and what the governor has recommended were in fiscal years 22 and 23 and relating to those K-Tracks transfers. The reason for that is that we do want to respectfully encourage the legislature to find a permanent funding solution for K-Tracks. That program, the federal funding for that ran out in 2016. The fee fund transfers from the licensing board were originally intended to be a short-term funding bridge to get to 2018 while a permanent solution was found. And so given that we're now looking at fiscal year 22 and 23, and we have a statute that essentially says we're not supposed to be charging those healthcare providers a fee, we question whether that's moving forward with that structure is consistent with the spirit and intent of that statute. But that said, I agree with everything that Ms. Blasey said in regard to the importance of the K-Tracks program. And I also want to say that from our perspective, the Board of Pharmacy has done a great job administering that program. Their staff, including Ms. Blasey, have done a great job at finding efficiencies and keeping that number as low as it can be. So we want to thank them for that. And we do absolutely agree that it is an essential public safety program. And I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks for being here in person, too. We appreciate that. Are there questions, committee? Senator McGinn.
So I want to make sure everybody had seen the letter from the Kansas Hospital Association, and that was followed the Board of Pharmacy, that they also believe that these should be state general funds and grants. The legislative budget committees in the past don't disagree with finding federal funds, but it did cause a lot of stress and disagreement in these past few years that we felt like it should be grants. And we did land on the fact that these fees coming from the doctors and the licensed practitioner nurses, they're the ones that write the scripts for these. Pharmacies are the ones that hand those things out. And so I think unless there's a whole nother philosophy that comes through here, to me, the legislature is comfortable with the current system that they finally came up with. And we hope that you can get federal funding to offset those fees. But I did not see, unless the legislative body has changed, a desire to change that to state general fund. So just a comment, I appreciate your comment as well, and I know you're new, but I've been through the last few years on this journey at K-Tracks, and I think for the most part, legislators are content with the solution that they came up for now.
Would you like me to comment on that?
If you care to, sure.
I appreciate that input. Again, my board's point of view, is that we have the statute that says that we're not supposed to be charging a fee to those healthcare providers. We understand that this is not directly charging a fee, but it is our licensees' money. And so that's my board's point of view on it.
And I think we will continue to work with you if there is another solution, but for now, I think this is the solution.
Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I didn't ask this when we looked at the Board of Pharmacy, but obviously these two budgets are somewhat interrelated. I'm confused that we're saying we have a way to take care of this when for the Board of Pharmacy, they have a negative ending balance in 2023. And it's a negative ending balance of over $500,000. So I'm trying to say, have we then really taken care of it? I'm on page 20 in the Board of Pharmacy's report.
And I'll just say, I know that Ms. Blasey has, federal funding was referenced. I know that they have made very deliberate efforts at trying to find every single source of funding. And so I think they have, gotten everything they can get on the federal funding, but I would defer to Ms. Blasey on that.
Senator McGinn.
Well, not to get sidetracked off of this budget, but do you want to bring Ms. Blasey back to talk about the negative balance, because there may be a reason for that other than K-Trax? I don't know if she's on or not.
Alexandria, are you still with us?
And I apologize, I did not hear the question over the microphone. So if someone could repeat it, I'd be happy to try to answer it.
So are you telling us you can't hear us very well? Because we have techs out in the hallway.
Hear everything fine until Senator Francisco. I apologize.
There you go. You happy to repeat the question? The question has to do with your ending balance for 2023. Is that a permanent, or is there some adjustment that will be made over time?
We do plan to increase fees so that we can mitigate the cost of that. And again, the goal is to phase out the fee fund transfers so that if we have that tax incentive, if those funds are coming in to supplement that program, then that will not be the case. So we're aware that if everything stayed as is, the fee fund balance would dip below. But our goal is to pull that up with some fee fund increases, as well as supplemental funds that'll be coming in, we hope. Watch it very carefully.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay. Senator McGinn.
Did you have any other comments besides the K-Trax situation?
I don't have any other comments other than answering any questions.
I'd just like to know if the committee is comfortable with the Board of Healing Arts budget. Haven't heard from everybody. Okay, I don't see any dissent. So, Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the Board of Healing Arts budget.
So I have a motion and a second. Senator Francisco seconds. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Now, committee, you understand why we put those two first, and it's a problem that the Ways and Means will continue to look at, I'm certain, with our two members. All right, next we have Board of Mortuary Arts. We have the budget overview by Sailor Sinclair, who's joining us on WebEx. And then in person, we have J.W. Carey, Executive Director, Kansas State Board of Mortuary Arts, and Jeff Arpin, Division of Budget on WebEx as well. So welcome, Sailor. You go ahead and start.
Hi, Madam Chair, Committee. As stated, I will be presenting Mortuary Arts. The first 7 pages of the Board of Mortuary Arts provide an overview of the agency budget. I can go into greater detail, but for the sake of time, I would like to turn to page 8, which details FY 2021. Beginning on page 8, FY 2021, the agency requested a revised estimate of $325,571, all from the mortuary fee fund. The overall revised estimate was unchanged. There were a few budgetary changes within the major categories of expenditures. Salaries and wages had an increase of $4,730. That was the main primary focus of the increase. And this increase was due to an overlap between the retiring executive secretary and the newly hired executive secretary. There were decreases in contractual services for $4,730. There was 8,475 requests for commodities, and 1,000 requests in capital outlay. And on page 9, the governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate for FY 2021. I can stand for questions.
Why don't you go ahead and continue? We'll see if we catch them all at the end. So,
All righty.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Turning to page 10, FY 2022, the agency requested $304,038, all from the Mortuary Arts Fee Fund, and 3 FTEs. This was a decrease of $21,533. The overall decreases were to better reflect anticipated expenditures and a reduction in salary expenditures. It details the major categories of expenditures, such as a decrease in salary and wages for $14,000. This decrease in salary was a reduction in salary for the executive secretary. Turning to page 11, there was a decrease of $6,360 in contractual services. Again, this decrease was for agency budgeting less for travel and other services. There was a decrease of $925 in commodities, and the agency also requested $1,000 for capital outlay. This request was due to computer equipment being replaced. In FY 2022, the governor concurs with the agency's request. Moving to page 12, which is FY 2023, the agency requested expenditures of $308,394. This was an increase of $4,356. The increases were across the board in salaries, wages, contractual services, commodities, and capital outlay. It was detailed below. There was an increase of $1,000 in salaries and wages to better anticipate expenditures and inflation. There was an increase in contractual services for $2,000. Again, the same reasoning for anticipated expenditures. Turning to page 13, there was an increase of $225. And again, as prior years, capital outlay was requested for $1,000, which was the same approved by the 2022 legislature. In 2023, the governor concurs with the agency's request. Let's see, moving on to page 17. This gives a good outline detail, a good chart of the Board of Mortuary Arts' licensures fees. It provides the current fees and the statutory limit on those said fees. And moving to page 18, just outlines or shows the governor's 2022 recommendation. It gives some good visual aids to see that recommendation. And page 19 showcases the administration's and agency's FTEs, which is 3 across the board. At this point, I can stand for questions. If not, I will turn it over to Mr. Carey, who is the Executive Secretary of the Board of Mortuary Arts.
Hey, Debbie, would you like to say anything? We have you with us as committee that you're here in person. Welcome to the committee. This is the first time you've been in this role.
Yes, it is. And I was here to observe, but I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions, committee, for either? And we also have Jeff Arpin, Division of Budget. Virtual, do we have any questions for any of them on this budget? It feels pretty straightforward. Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, it is very straightforward. It makes sense that you have 3 positions and you're considering getting a computer every year. And then is that something that you roll over and assume that after 3 years, ready for new equipment or needing new equipment?
Actually, the computers that we got, we didn't have the capability to work remotely. And we went ahead and through the lease program, through OITS, we went ahead and got 2 laptops. Not only can those laptops be used to work remotely if we have to, sometimes with inspector travels and things like that we do have to work remotely, even myself if I'm in different communities across the state. But those computers can also be used to replace our desktop computers, which are antiquated and out of date.
So this is sort of a lease agreement?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Senator Warren, did you have a question? No. Thank you. All right, committee. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Senator McGinn. Senator Erickson, didn't see you down there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move that we accept this budget, approve it favorably. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second. I think I heard Senator McGinn second first. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Well, welcome and thank you for being here in person too, JW. Yeah, we like that. All right, our next budget, we're just moving right along, is Board of Nursing. We have a budget overview by Megan Leopold, who's joined as WebEx, and we also have Carol Moland, the Executive Administrator of Kansas State Board of Nursing. Would you like to say a few words to us in a bit too, and introduce? Okay, thank you. So Megan, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Megan Leopold with Kansas Legislative Research Department. I'm going to provide an overview on the Board of Nursing budget. The Board of Nursing regulates the practice of nursing through licensing and credentialing both nurses and mental health technicians. They also approve continuing education providers and accredit schools. And finally, they investigate any complaints that are concerning nursing practices or practitioners in Kansas. If you turn to page 3, the budget analysis, you'll see that in 2020, the legislature deleted a transfer of $103,500. That was from the Board of Nursing Fee Fund to the Board of Pharmacy. That was for the KTRACS program. Moving forward to page 6, you'll see the agency's performance measures. They monitor, among other things, the number of investigations that are open, the processing time of reinstatements of licensures, and then investigations completed within 9 months of receiving the complaint. On page 10 starts the 2021 fiscal year budget. The agency's estimate for 2021 is $3.2 million, and that's all from special revenue funds. That includes both the criminal background and fingerprint fund as well as the nursing board fee fund. This is an increase of $50,000, and that increase is all due to an increased number of requests for fingerprints that the agency has received. That's largely due to both the COVID pandemic and an increase of nurses wanting to be licensed, as well as the compact that the agency has entered into that allows nurses to be licensed in more than one state at a time, or have one license that allows them to operate in different states. So that increased the number of applicants for this year for fingerprints. The revised estimate includes 27 full-time employees, and that's the same number that was approved by the 2020 legislature. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate, and in fiscal year 21, the governor does not include a transfer from the nursing board fee fund for KTRACS. On page 12, you'll see the fiscal year 22 budget. The agency's expenditures for fiscal year 22 are $3.4 million. And again, that's all from the special revenue funds. This is an increase of $242,000, a 7.6% increase above the fiscal year 21 revised estimate. It also includes 27 full-time employees, which is the same number as requested in fiscal year 2021. The increase in fiscal year 22 is largely due to contractual and commodities expenditures for software upgrades. These are one-time expenditures for fiscal year 22. The agency is looking to update their licensure renewals and some software upgrades that would help the investigations tracking staff. They're also looking to update their data center equipment. And these are upgrades for equipment that is reaching their end of life and end of support status. On the next page, you'll see that the governor did concur the agency's request of 3.4 million and the 27 FTEs. The difference between the agency's request and the governor's request is that the governor also recommends transferring $70,000 from the Board of Nursing Fee Fund to the Board of Pharmacy for funding K-Tracks, and that's in fiscal year 22. In fiscal year 23, on page 14, you'll see that the agency had expenditures of 3.3 million. This is a decrease of 154,000 or 4.5% below the fiscal year 22 request. And again, includes the same number of employees, 27 full-time employees. The decrease is largely due to those one-time expenditures for software and data center upgrades in fiscal year 22. And it's offset by some increased cost of benefits for employees. Again, the governor concurs with the agency's request, but with the addition of a $70,000 transfer from the Board of Nursing Fee Fund to the Board of Pharmacy to help fund K-Tracks. On page 17, you'll see the breakdown in funding sources for the agency. The agency gets about 88% of their funding through the Board of Nursing Fee Fund, and then approximately 11% from the Criminal Background and Fingerprint Fund. And then on page 18, you can see a printout of the agency's fee fund, and that shows the difference that the governor's recommendation for the transfer of $70,000 in fiscal years 22 and 23 impacts their fee fund. With that, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
I think, Megan, we'll hear from Carol first, and then we'll ask our questions. And first on deck would be Senator Warren. But Carol, welcome to the committee. And in the interest of time, you have a few things you'd like us to know.
Right, you have my testimony, and all I wanted to do is just briefly kind of explain the rationale for the increase in fiscal year 22. What we're wanting to do is get an enforcement module that goes with our licensing software so that we have much more consistent documentation across our licensing software for our discipline and investigative teams. Right now, we do not have that, and we've never had that. So we're asking for money for that. And then we need to do a software upgrade for the Microsoft Data Center license renewals. This is required by Microsoft. This powers our data centers, maintains our security patches on our operating system, which is extremely vital for the security of our agency. And then the last, which Megan kind of talked about, is we need to upgrade the data center equipment. And this is basically the equipment that houses all of our virtual servers. Since March of last year, we have taken 70% of our employees remotely in order to protect them. And we have done a lot more stuff electronic than we've ever done before. And we have nurses, of course, on the front lines of this pandemic. So we have to be able to keep our systems going and the security be there, the patches and everything like that. And so that's why we're asking for that extra money. And so it's just very vital that we're able to upgrade that. But that's really all I wanted to say. I'll just stand for questions.
Thank you, Carol. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here to testify. And I did want to say thank you to the Board of Pharmacy and the Board of Healing Arts and the Board of Nursing for all you have done to be on the front lines, especially during this last year. Just a technical question, I think, probably for KLRD, for Megan. On page 10 of the budget overview, it looks like legislative approved for FY 2021 is $99,999,999, and then that's carried through. So can you explain and revise that? Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I just noticed that actually last night as I was going through the document. The legislative approved amount for fiscal year 2021 was, not surprisingly, not $99 million. but it was $2.8 million. And that's the same amount that was approved by that was requested by the agency for to come from the nursing board fee fund. And then the fingerprint fund was 330, the legislative approved, and the $50,000 that the agency has requested as an increase all came out of that fingerprint fund. So the agency estimate in 2021 went from 330,000 to 380,000.
Okay, and then those numbers would carry across through the other columns on page 10.
Right. So to put it more simply, the 9999 number should be 0. And then
Okay.
the 0 in the legislative approved should be 3125009.
Thank you for clearing that up. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good catch, Senator Warren. Any other questions, committee, before we move on to our next one?
I'd just like Megan to give us a new page.
Megan, did you hear that, to prepare a new page for the budget for Senator McKenna?
Yes, we will. Yes.
Thank you, Carol, for joining us. Yes. Senator Erickson?
Are you ready to, thank you, Madam Chair. Are you ready to entertain a motion?
There's no other questions from the committee. I believe so. You go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move we approve the Board of Nursing budget for 21-22-23 as recommended by the governor.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second, Senator Thompson. All those in favor say aye.
I have just a quick question.
Oh, yes, Senator Warren.
That wouldn't include the erroneous page 10 that we're approving, right? With the motion, okay, so the motion would include a revised per the discussion today on page 10.
That sounds proper, and Senator McKenna can carry that to the full committee, and Senator Erickson, yes, corrected page.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. So all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Okay, motion passes. Very last one, we have Behavioral Science Regulatory Board. We have a budget overview by Martin DeBoer, and then also we have joined as David Fry, Executive Director of Behavioral Science Regulatory Board. So take it away, Martin, and I know you've done this before, so if you can be as brief as you can for us, that we can understand.
Will do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be presenting the Behavioral Sciences Regulatory Board, and as the chair mentioned, David Fye, the Executive Director, is there with you. This agency regulates the practice of psychologists and social work, and the many different categories that fall underneath those practices. If you start on page 5, you'll see a quick overview of the performance measures that were identified by the agency and the governor's office. We jump to page 9. We'll start with fiscal year 2021, and following suit, I will continue to 22 and 23 following this. Below the graph, for 2021, the agency estimates $959,271, all from special revenue funds. And this is the same as the approved amount from the 2020 legislature. This is a decrease in salary wages expenditures and is offset by increased expenditures from contractual services. The agency's request also includes 9 FTE positions. If you turn the page on the bottom right, on page 10, you will have the governor's recommendation. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate for FY 2021. Following that, on page 11, you'll have fiscal year 2022. For 2022, the agency estimates or requests expenditures of $959,145, all from special revenue funds. This is a decrease of $126 or less than 0.1% below the 21 revised estimate. There's an increase in capital outlay and salaries and wages expenditures, but this is offset by expenditures for contractual services and their commodities. Again, the agency requests 9 FTE positions, which is the same as the 21 revised estimate. Turning the page to page 12, on the bottom right, you will see the governor's recommendation and that the governor concurs with the agency's FY 2022 request. On the following page, on page 13, you'll have the fiscal year 23 request. In 2023, the agency requests expenditures of $968,062, all from special revenue funds. This is an increase of $8,917 or 0.9% above the fiscal year 2022. This increase is attributable to the group health insurance, building rent, and office equipment. Again, the agency requests 9 FTE positions, which is the same as a 2022 request. Following page, on page 14, the bottom right, we will have the governor's recommendation, and the governor concurs with the fiscal year 2023 request. I would like to note that on page 17, you'll have an overview of their fee fund. This is a fee-funded agency. Following page, on page 18, is the beginning of the list of all of their fees, as well as the statutory limits. And the remaining pages give a small breakdown of their 2 programs. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Martin. David, would you have any comments for us before we'll have the committee ask questions? And running out of time, but sorry to cut you short, but brief as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Dave Fye. I'm the new executive director for the agency. Our previous executive director was named Max Foster, and Max had been with the agency for about 8 years. And so I was able to overlap with Max for about a month before he left, but I wished him well in his retirement. And I am relatively new to the agency, but I wanted to approach with some information here. You have my testimony. I provided some updated information in terms of our current licensures, and Martin did a good job explaining our budget request, which was recommended by the governor as well. So I know you're short on time, but I can answer any questions if you have any additional questions.
Well, welcome to your new job, David. Senator McGinn.
Thank you. Yes, David, you're like the rest who left us, but glad you're doing good work.
Thank you.
So I just kind of have a question with the work that's been moving forward on the modernization of mental health, which is diversifying more into behavioral health. Are you seeing, will you guys be either, I don't know, needing to change your budget or change your FTEs, or is that some of those responsibilities that may be coming, are you able to integrate all that in your current budget and your FTEs?
Madam Chair, we have our office is split between licensure and investigation, and I can tell from the brief time in the agency that the employees are being pushed to do a lot in terms of what they're doing right now. So it might be a little early for me to gauge on that, but I think for sure next year I can let you know. We do have a bill before the legislature this year. It was posted to the website yesterday afternoon. It is House Bill 2208, and it has to do with some recommendations by the board concerning different requirements for licensure and some other things for the agency. But yeah, it's House Bill 2208 concerning the BSRB.
Okay. So it's a little too early to tell, and whatever legislation moves forward and how we move forward on that interim report, it'll probably be something that you may be talking about next year.
Correct. We are listening to any feedback, and I'm getting up to speed very quickly on the agency, trying to gauge what we're able to do and if we need additional support. But if we definitely do, then I'll bring it before you, and I'd appreciate any assistance you can provide.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Any other questions, committee? Okay, I don't see any other questions. If we're ready to deliberate a motion. Senator Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I move that we approve the Behavioral Sciences Regulatory Board budget for FY 21, 22, and 23 as recommended by the governor.
So we have a motion. Do I have a second? Senator Thompson. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Well, thank you, committee, for working through those 5. We're on a deadline for the big committee, which I understood ours were passed out or reported out this morning by Senator McGinn. So thank you for working on that. One thing we've learned is KTRAX is very important, but how we pay for it is a future problem we'll continue to look at. So thank you. And Senator Francisco.
I also want to thank all the members of the committee for taking the time to do this. When we sat yesterday in the Committee for State Building Construction, we were being asked to approve information that had already been considered by the committees, so there was no chance for us to have any input. So everyone taking the time and getting this done, getting the pages accurate, is important.
Actually, it's a fascinating process for those who have not been on a budget committee, so it's very educational. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, and just a thank you to the other boards who are transferring funds to help support KTRAX under the Board of Pharmacy. So thank them for that as well.
One last item before we go. We do have bill introductions. If you don't mind, I'll go first. If you remember hearing from the Ethics Commission, they requested a few bills, so I have 3 bills to introduce. RS 0717, which addresses the grace period for lobbyist late filing fees. RS 0712, which addresses the attributions on social media, and RS 0743, authorizing sharing of investigations with federal officers. If you recall Mark speaking to us about those. Seemed pretty straightforward that we should discuss those. So without objection, we'll bring those into the committee. Okay. Don't see any objection. All right, any other bill introductions? Senator Corson? Welcome to the committee.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I have a quick bill introduction. This is 21 RS 0746. It's an act concerning elections relating to election commissioners, providing for appointment by the Board of County Commissioners.
Thank you, Ethan. Senator Corson, any objection? All right, we'll bring that into the committee. Thank you. All right, Senator McGinn.
I had one, but I looked at it, the individual that handed me this gave me House RS numbers, so we'll just have to wait till next week.
All right. All right. Any other business? Okay, we're adjourned.